You've made a commitment. In fact, you unveiled an ambitious plan for zero emissions by 2025. What was the tipping point?
Good morning. It's really a pleasure to be here. Well, the tipping point is to do the right thing. I believe we are facing a climate crisis. I think every company has to do something. And, you know, I have children and I have a grandson, and they are going to look at me and say, well, what did you do? And our employees also are asking us, expecting us to do something.
How about shareholders? How much pressure are shareholders putting on companies like AstraZeneca to do the right thing?
I think shareholders are starting to show that sustainability matters to them. There's more and more of our shareholders asking us what we do in this area. The pressure is not, I believe, not yet strong enough, to be frank, and companies will have to be incentivized to do something about this climate crisis.
How should they be incentivized?
Well, I think ultimately, you know, everybody is going to be incentivized by their employees. And as a leader, you also go home every day and you talk to your children. And children are going to look at us and say, what did you do for me? And I have a grandson, our grandchildren will look at us and say, what did you do for me? And our employees, you know, especially the millennials, young people, are expecting us to do something. So I think this is really what will drive everybody ultimately. But shareholders should also demand that companies do something and then, you know, vote with their feet if nothing is done.
In terms of your business, you establish research facilities in China. How soon do you expect China to be a major player in the drug space?
Oh, China is rapidly becoming a major player in the drug space. They have large generic companies today that are consolidating, but they also have a very, very vibrant biotech ecosystem. And you see small and medium-sized companies emerging in China very rapidly.
When you take a look at China, lots of potential, especially with the aging population, but you're also seeing headwinds when it comes to prices. What's your take on that? And are you perhaps concerned that perhaps other countries may adopt the pricing model that China is adopting?
Well, you know, I think the way I look at China, and, you know, we're very big in China, we're #1 pharmaceutical company there. I think China as a country is normalizing. President Xi's strategy is very clear. He wants China to become part of the world, open up to the world. And then what that means for the pharmaceutical industry is that they are fast-tracking innovation, fast-tracking approval of new products and reimbursing new products that would not have been reimbursed in the past. On the other hand, they're trying to save money, like Europe, like US, like everybody is trying to save money with products out of patent by reducing prices. So there's nothing unusual here. It's what's happening everywhere else.
In terms of the challenges that you face in the drug industry right now, what would that be?
Okay, sorry, can you just...
The biggest challenge that you face?
The biggest challenge? Well, the biggest challenge is to ensure that societies around the world, and in particular in the developed world, but also in China, understand the need to have a proper reward as a pharmaceutical company if you want us to invest in innovation. If you think about how cancer is treated today compared to 20 years ago, it's massively different. Survival rates at 5 years, as we measure them, have improved very substantially. And in most countries, they're improving a lot. I have to say the UK is a good example. We are based there. And the UK has had an improvement in survival rates that is much less than other countries. And guess what? Innovation in the UK is not adopted very quickly because there are lots of barriers to adoption.
You talk about cancer. It's becoming quite a crowded space. Sanofi is getting into that space. You talk about innovation. Where do you see the biggest breakthroughs for cancer in the next 5 years, perhaps?
I think it will continue to be in the area of precision medicines, targeting the right patients, the right tumor type. Immuno-oncology is going to continue growing and developing rapidly. It hasn't really progressed as quickly as we might have thought 3-4 years ago, but we will get there. Cell therapy will be another area. I mean, there are many, many new technologies that are emerging that will lead to breakthroughs in the treatment of cancers.
As the industry picks up, there are also concerns about how drugs are disposed. I mean, there have been reports of drugs being disposed in streams, and regulators are not consistent in the recommendation of how they should be disposed. What's your take on that, and can there be a standard regulation?
Yeah, I think that, like many things in our industry, regulation will globalize and normalize, and then, I think we need to make sure that the disposal of drugs is done in a proper manner. But this will happen. I think every country is going to come up with their own regulation, and patients will be advised how to do that.
As we sit here in Davos, there are growing concerns about the coronavirus in China, which seems to have picked up pace and spread pretty much in several countries now. What's your take, and how contained can that be?
Well, first of all, we'll have to wait to hear from the WHO, who are meeting anytime soon. And it looks like so far it is relatively contained. But this is a threat that should be taken seriously. And I'm sure WHO will come up with recommendations on how we should deal with this. But believe me, I think personally there's a much bigger threat that is facing the world today, and it's global warming, it's climate change, and I think we all need to do something about it.
But to do with the coronavirus, do you think any lessons could have been learned from the SARS outbreak which hit the world?
I think that absolutely lessons have been learned. But viruses like the coronavirus keeps mutating, and so new viruses come up just like the flu, except SARS is even more dangerous, but they keep mutating, and you have to adapt and react to these new viruses when they emerge.
Just one final question before we go, Mr. Sori. What excites you the most if you take a look at AstraZeneca in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think very clearly the explosion of science, and it's not only about AstraZeneca, it's about the world. I think the solution to the threats we all face are technology-based, they are science-based. And in our company, we follow the science, that's one of our values. And the most exciting is really the explosion of new science and new medicines that will help us develop new medicines that will modify the treatment of cancer. Our goal is to eliminate cancer as a cause of death. And I think it's not that far away.